Next individual is Laura Young, 87 Laura Gore Road, Webster, Mass. Subject matter is water sale. Motion to waive the rules. Motion to waive the rule was made by Council Pereira, seconded by Council Ponte. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, so voted. Motion carries.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Thank you for having me and hearing me tonight. My name is Laura Young, and I'm a rather recent resident of Massachusetts, having moved here in 2008. I'm originally from Burrillville, Rhode Island, and a close neighbor to Massachusetts, living in Webster. On March 13, 2017, I went to Webster, Massachusetts Town Hall meeting to bring to my selectmen's attention the proposal of a $1 billion frack gas diesel-powered energy facility by Invenergy, a Chicago-based corporation. Tonight, I'd like to inform the Fall River City Council and community about the proposed power plant. What it means for not only Burrillville, but Massachusetts. I have been to every EFSB meeting held in Burrillville, along with meetings in Woonsocket. I have watched the live-streamed EFSB meetings held in Warwick. I've been aware of this project since December of 2015, before most people in Burrillville were even aware. So I come to you as a first-hand witness to the process, which I have been repeatedly told to trust. I'm here tonight to tell you not to trust this process or Invenergy. For those of you who have never been to Burrillville, the land that this community wants to build on is located in Pasco, my hometown, adjacent to the Buck Hill Management Area, Pulaski State Park, George Washington State Park, Douglas State Forest, and the Feinstein Youth Boy Scouts Camp. And it is adjacent to the Last Green Valley, a 35-town National Heritage Corridor, which includes Webster, Mass. None of the private property adjacent to the proposed site is zoned for industrialization, and this large forested corridor is the region's last forested corridor connecting the coast to the interior between Washington, D.C. and Boston. Invenergy submitted their application to Rhode Island's Energy Facility Siting Board full of misinformation and missing information. And in the past 2 years, they have proceeded to use sleight-of-hand tactics to attempt to obtain water to cool their proposed power plant. Their application is so flawed that by their own admission, they should have had their proposal dismissed by the EFSB of Rhode Island, and they should have resubmitted it. However, in doing so, they would have had to start the process from the beginning again, which would have extended the process and allow for advisory committees to have a chance to submit data or resubmit updated data. One of the biggest issues for Invenergy has been getting a water source to cool the power plant. The reasons why Burrillville is not allowing the use of their water is because Burrillville is the home of the largest MTBE case in the history of the state. According to attorney Brian Cunha, lawyer for affected residents of Pasco, Rhode Island, it was contaminated with MTBE, a carcinogen, in 2001 when it was spilled by an ExxonMobil gas station. The chemical MTBE is hydrophilic, meaning that it chemically bonds easily with water, and it is nearly impossible to remove the MTBE once it is in the groundwater. Pasco's only public drinking well was shut down after residents began getting sick with cancer and a whole host of lifelong ailments, to include a child who was born with birth defects that the doctor concluded were from his mother's exposure to MTBE-tainted water from her childhood. Testimony from the mother was given at one of the EFSB meetings in Burrillville. But this is not an old issue. Today, this very day, residents of Oakland, Rhode Island, a village in Burrillville, are forced to use bottled water as their well is contaminated with perfluorinated chemicals, which are also carcinogens. So when Invenergy went to Harrisville and Nasonville, villages that neighbor both Pasco and Oakland, Harrisville and Nasonville both said no. No, we will not sell you our water. Invenergy then went on a hunt for water. They tried many times to get a water deal. On the very night that Woonsocket, Rhode Island, voted to protect its water, Johnston's mayor, Joseph Policina, decided to sell their water to Invenergy. This deal was made much like the deal that Fall River made. Residents were not informed. A union-packed town hall meant that residents were not only unable to get a seat in the room, but they were not given the chance to be heard. The Conservation Law Foundation has filed a Superior Court lawsuit in March of this year challenging the legality of the water deal. Johnston does not have its own potable water source, and the water that they buy comes from a water deal that they have with Providence, by way of a water deal that Providence has with the town of Scituate. It should be noted that Mayor Elazoria of Providence, Rhode Island, came out against a water deal with Invenergy in 2016, before Invenergy had a chance to make a formal request. Because Johnston's water deal is not set in stone, Invenergy went looking for more water sources, and they made a water deal with members of the Narragansett Indian tribe. This water deal was in violation of tribal law. As the tribal people did not vote on the sale, Darlene Monroe, a tribal elder, has gone on record stating that a court order will be filed to put a stop to this water agreement. On October 17th, in an EFSB meeting, Charleston, Rhode Island was granted intervenor status due to Invenergy wanting to use the Narragansett Indian tribe's water. Charleston's attorney, Peter Ruggiero, testified that there is an industrial waste landfill in the area of Charleston that could be affected if the aquifer is drained down, risking the contamination of an entire aquifer, and that their water supply from its aquifer is limited and finite. This status was granted by the EFSB, and now Charlestown will be holding public meetings regarding this water deal. When Invenergy released their supplemental water supply plan on September 28, 2017, it was apparent that there were two water sources, the Narragansett Indian tribe and discovered on October 21st, Fall River, Massachusetts. So here I am in Fall River because Mayor Carrera and the Watuppa Water Board approved the sale of water to Invenergy. The mayor said, "There's craziness in Rhode Island, but that's not our deal. I don't think the city should take a position on a project in another state." Yet by selling water to Invenergy, the mayor took a very large position on a project in another state. 35 cities and towns have resolutely come out against this proposed power plant, and Fall River will be known as the town that supplies water to an outdated, unnecessary, environmentally destructive project located in another state. The fight against this power plant was not crossing state lines, but the mayor brought this fight into Massachusetts. And so I'm here tonight as a Massachusetts resident. Topher Hamblett of Save the Bay, Providence, Rhode Island, has submitted testimony to urge the EFSB to deny the application, and that, quote, Clear River watershed in which this plant would be built is an integral part of the Blackstone watershed, which is, of course, an integral part of the Narragansett Bay. The Clear River Energy Center does not belong in this location. He said this on October 10th in the EFSB meeting. Fall River is located at the confluence of the Taunton River and Mount Hope Bay, which forms the northeasternmost part of Narragansett Bay. In other words, the water that you're selling Invenergy will be polluted and dumped right back down into the bay. Water issues aside, based on what we know from the application, the following statistics, which could grow staggeringly once the application is completed. The amount of carbon dioxide emitted annually would amount to 750,000 cars. That is a 38% increase in the annual energy release CO2 emissions in the state of Rhode Island. Even if you're not concerned with global warming or the health of the surrounding environment, the side effects of having high levels of CO2 in the area can cause serious health effects. The proposed power plant will be the largest producer of greenhouse gases and pollutants, including carcinogens in our area. Carcinogens are substances capable of causing cancer, and I don't discuss carcinogens or cancer lightly, as I know firsthand what cancer can do to a person and to a family, as I lost my 5-month-old daughter, Zoe, to an exceedingly rare form of pediatric cancer. The thought of having a facility located just up the road from my house that will be putting carcinogens in the air is terrifying, especially when there is no need for this power plant. With green initiatives and the move from fossil fuels to renewables, we are beginning to see that we can power our region without antiquated technologies like the proposed power plant. Massachusetts is currently ranked 3rd in the country for being green, with laws like the Global Warming Solutions Act of 2008 and the Act transitioning Massachusetts to 100% renewable energy, which is currently pending in the state legislature, which, if put into law, would have Massachusetts be entirely off fossil fuels by 2050. In other words, just years after this power plant would be decommissioned. We should start demanding that changes be made now, starting with telling Invenergy we don't need their fossil fuel and diesel-powered power plant. Invenergy participated in the ISO New England Energy Auction, and in the past 2 forward capacity auctions, Invenergy could only sell half of its output, and it was unable to sell any in this year's auction because there was a surplus of 1,926 megawatts for the southern New England zone. Even if you subtract the 485 megawatts that Invenergy sold in previous auctions, it still leaves a surplus of 1,441 megawatts for the region. These numbers also take into consideration power plants that are due to come offline. Massachusetts is adding power to the regional grid daily as solar is being installed at a breakneck pace. On my street alone, I can count dozens of homes with solar panels, and hopefully in 2008, mine will be as well. Lastly, there's a concern for the infrastructure of Massachusetts. Due to Invenergy withholding information for advisory committees, the Department of Transportation was unable to even submit a response to the EFSB. This means that we currently don't know the impact to our town's roadways and bridges. Invenergy will be trucking wastewater from Burrillville to Worcester. This is known because the wastewater will be going to Ohio via train. But the path that the trucks take, the number of trucks hauling the wastewater and the number of trips those trucks have to make per day are all unknown, not to mention the risk of hauling power plant wastewater in New England weather on back roads and through difficult intersections. With the Fall River water deal, now trucks will be required to haul water from Fall River to the far corner of Rhode Island. And I'm not sure if you've ever been to Burrillville, but I made the drive tonight from Natick to Fall River, where I work.
Can I just interrupt? I know we don't have a time limit, but
Right.
we do have to conclude if we don't mind.
you-
And
yeah.
the audience, please,
Okay.
again.
I will sum up. If I were a resident of Fall River, I would have many questions about the water deal. I would like to know why, if there has not been any changes to the application, why would one community be selling more or less water than another? I'd want to know exactly why there are differences in these deals and just how many trucks a day would be traveling on the roads every day of the year, and what roads and what bridges will be used for transport of this water. From what I can tell, there is not any way to leave Fall River without going over a bridge, so bridges should be considered.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.